Finance Minister, we are thrilled to have you with us. Welcome to Bloomberg Surveillance. Were you surprised by this huge, huge win for your nation and for Tim Cook in Cupertino?
Well, I always believed such an outcome was possible. And Ireland has been very clear now over many, many years that we do not make special tax agreements with any company, big, small, here in our country, and all taxpayers are treated equally. We really value the relationship that we have with an employer such as Apple, like we value the relationship that we have with all employers in Ireland. And we do not do special deals for them, and this ruling here today is a recognition of that.
Minister, you have lived this with P&G years ago. I want you to explain to those of continental Europe and, frankly, those of you worldwide that appropriate tax policy for multinationals is not theft from the general taxpayer.
Well, I believe it's absolutely imperative that big companies are taxed effectively and they are taxed fairly. And I also believe that for very big digital companies, how we are going to tax them in the future is also going to change. But what was so important about this particular issue is an allegation was made that we were in some way treating Apple differently to other taxpayers that would be here in Ireland. This matter ultimately ended up in the General Court of the European Union, and it's been settled in the way that you've now described. So the message from me as a finance minister here in Europe is that companies, whether they're from Europe, America, or anywhere else in the world, have to be taxed effectively and fairly. And this was a really important issue for our tax code here in Ireland.
Moving from taxing to spending, there's a big question. You are the president. You are the head of a group of 19 finance ministers that will all get together this weekend for that European Commission meeting where they're going to be speaking about that key trillion euro budget, as well as the 750 billion euro plan that has been proposed. How much pushback are you hearing from the Frugal Four on what has been proposed on bringing that fiscal stimulus down?
Yes, there is a diversity of debate in relation to this particular project within Europe and inside the European Union. But very broadly, the point I would make to you and to all your viewers across the world is this is a really signature example of Europe deepening its economic architecture and deepening and making stronger the foundations of the euro. And we are doing that to strengthen the ability of our own economies here in Europe to respond back to the economic shock of COVID. And because this is such a big project, of course, there are different views in relation to it. But I do believe that within the European Union, we'll reach agreement on the matter. And the concerns that my colleagues and friends have among some countries regarding the scale of the fund and how this money can be used effectively and transparently, I believe with creativity and imagination in the coming days or maybe week or so, we'll find a way of reaching agreement.
Mr. Donohoe, I want to go back to Apple. I think the sovereignty issue here, and it frankly has to do with the weekend meetings, but the sovereignty issue here is absolutely critical. Frankly, going back to Trinity College and Elizabeth I and the formation of liberty in Ireland, what this decision is really about, folding into all the different EU meetings that are yawners, is about sovereignty of nations to make their own laws. What does it mean for Brussels to see this victory by you today?
Well, actually, I believe in the pooling of sovereignty and I believe in the sharing of sovereignty. I'm a passionate supporter of the European project. I'm a deep believer in the process of European integration that we have and the need to look at how we can strengthen it in the future. So I would actually regularly make the case here in Ireland and across Europe and indeed across the world that the European project, both economically and politically, is an extraordinary achievement that, from my point of view, personally and politically, I want to protect, I want to secure it, and I want to grow it in the future. And Commissioner Vestager is a commissioner that I have huge respect for, who I look forward to working with again in the future. That said, there are always a number of particular areas in terms of how decisions are made and then how they're implemented that are always going to matter to individual nation states. And from our point of view, the reason this was so important is that it created the inference that we used our national sovereignty in some way to give favourable treatment to a company. That wasn't the case. It's been recognised by the ruling here this morning. But, you know, I make this case and I make that argument, though, in the context of somebody who is a European politician, believes in the European Union and the sharing of sovereignty. But inside that architecture, countries still have roles, they have duties and they have responsibilities. And that's why this hearing was so important.